Here we go. Hello, everybody. If you signed up for Form Magic, how to turn files into fully built web forms in seconds, then yep, you're in the right place. I'm Skylar Rogers, coming to you from the virtual FormAssembly office here behind me. A little bit empty. They're giving me some space today, but joining me virtually is our friend Justin Benton. Justin and I both have chances to go to various events and meet FormAssembly customers in person, to host webinars like these, to go to some of our user events, both virtually and kind of in person, do demonstrations. So maybe you've seen Justin before, but if you haven't, Justin, how's it going, man?
Thanks, Skylar. And big thank you to everybody, obviously, for setting aside some time to hang out with us both today. And going well because there's a lot to talk about at FormAssembly. If you've heard any of the recent communication, seen us at Dreamforce, got a lot to bring to you. And one of those things is the new file to web form feature that there's a lot to work through that I'm excited to cover today.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, a little bit of form magic, not only in the feature we're going to show you today, but in a lot of the stuff that FormAssembly's got cooking. Yeah, let's get into it. Before we really settle into the content, whether it's your first time or you've been with us a few times, we do like to always call out a few housekeeping items here. We are in the On24 sort of studio for this webinar technology, so you'll see a number of kind of boxes and options around you. We do love to call out the sort of ask questions box you'll see there. That's a way to submit questions to us that we can try to get to in Q&A towards the end. There's a little resources section there to a few things relevant to the discussion today, or that might be good jumping off points from here if you see those resource links. And then, of course, we'd love to head this question off towards the beginning every time. But yes, we absolutely are recording this, and we can't wait to send it out to you on demand. If you see something in today's demonstration or in today's discussion that kind of gets you thinking a bit, maybe there's a piece of it that you want to go back and revisit, listen to that piece of the discussion again, or watch that piece of a demonstration again, so you can do this in your own FormAssembly setup. But with that housekeeping out of the way, hopefully that kind of sets the stage. Yeah, we'd love to intro you to file to web form, or maybe be a refresher. Let's see. We're going to talk to you about, it is a simple feature to sort of understand on the surface, but there's so much breadth and depth underneath it. We want to, here internally at least, we talk about starting, scaling, and switching when it comes to this feature, because there's a lot of sort of capabilities with this. So we'll get into that a little bit, show you some of those use cases, show you some of those demonstrations with it, hopefully, sort of leave you with some inspiration, some motivation to give this a shot. And like I said, as we can get to some Q&A kind of towards the end. Yeah, before we really look at the feature, I was curious, so I threw a poll in here. I've got it on the screen now. From the audience sort of watching today, have you tried this feature? Have you tried the FormAssembly file to web form feature yet? Maybe kind of you saw it in passing. Maybe you caught a few of our sort of announcements about it late this summer, or maybe it's just been something, oh, I'll get to that later, or I sort of forgot about. So curious if you tried it out yet, or just sort of not yet. Justin, while they submit their answers, what do you think we got? What do you think the mix is going to be today?
I have a feeling we have at least a few folks that were eager to try out something as soon as it was available, which I always love to see in the FormAssembly community. But I'm sure there's also going to be some folks that maybe haven't used it, or maybe looking at this going, I'm eager to try it, but not sure what I should expect as the outcome. And especially with the start, scale, switch, I think this really speaks to all levels of FormAssembly customers, whether it's day one or day 1 million.
Yep. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, secretly, I was kind of hoping for this, because that means you're definitely in the right place. If you haven't tried it yet, hopefully we've got a bit of a magic show, as the title implies, of kind of what we can show off with this feature. And for that pocket of yeses, maybe you took a quick glance, maybe you're not necessarily a power user of it yet. I think you're gonna maybe get some inspiration for some use cases that are really gonna help your team beyond how you may have tried it so far. So with all that said, thanks so much for participating there. But yeah, let's get into it. Another sort of quick intro of the file to web form feature. Like we said, this is something we've sort of improved this summer of 25, and you may have seen it in the product or not. But really, when we talk about this, and kind of show it off at events or get into demonstrations of it. The line for us as we were developing is how it really feels like it's just never been easier to start, switch, or scale kind of when it comes to these forms and workflows. Because as the name implies, if you've got a file, you can probably turn it into a web form now. And really, I'm talking about digital files or paper, as you'll see. Complex applications that you sort of have on hand, really easy to turn them into web forms now. As you can see in that middle point there, even paper processes, if you've got some of those sort of extra, paper only forms that have stubbornly not made their way into a form assembly or a form platform yet, this is a feature you're gonna want to look at. But the promise here, if you haven't tried it yet, is any paper or digital form, bring it into form assembly in seconds. Hopefully you can kind of hear some of the excitement in my voice. I've used this quite a bit since we launched it in the summer. It saved me so much time in talking to some of the teams, who are beta testing it or have kind of seen it to date. It's already starting to do the same for them. Really, to go just basic of the basic though, if maybe you have form assembly open while you're watching this, or you intend to kind of go to it afterwards, I want to point out exactly where it is. If you're opening your form assembly dashboard, maybe it might feel familiar to you at this point, but you're going to click on that new form, right, when you're going to get started creating something new for you or your team. But now you're going to see a new option in there. After you click new form, you're going to see file to web form. And in choosing that, you'll be prompted to, feed it a file, right? So as you can see, there's a ton of different file formats supported. We've called a few of them out here, but say you had a PDF that you downloaded or you converted something to on hand. JPEG, PNG, that really means if you've taken a picture of something maybe, or you've got a screenshot of something, of an existing form, or even something that kind of looks like a form, take a screenshot, get that JPEG, that PNG file, try that out. And then, you can even see support for spreadsheets, right? And they may not make that immediate distinction, but are you tracking something or getting data input maybe internally for a certain spreadsheet that you have on hand, that you're keeping track of certain processes or keeping track of certain approval loops or something? It can even look at some of those Excel files and understand kind of what's happening data collection wise and turn that into a web form for you. So again, if you didn't know beyond just PDF, if you didn't know about kind of the screenshot trick, if you didn't know it supported Excel sheets, hopefully some light bulbs are kind of already going off. But wide range of versatility here. Again, if you haven't tried it, that's where you'll find it. How exactly does this help, right? Tying this back to that kind of start, scale, switch that we've been talking about internally and in a few of our kind of promotional materials for it, for sure, when we think about this feature. But it's really never been easier to get started. We talk to a lot of customers, or there's maybe some legacy accounts where, maybe virtually we kind of raise, I can't see you, but maybe raise your hand if this pertains to you. You've gotten into form assembly and you've got that sort of core group of really business critical forms that you've got rocking and rolling and sort of inserted into your business processes. But you haven't really gone back and, we do use a number of forms in other areas. Maybe we've got some still, on paper only that we haven't taken the time to build a virtual form yet. Never been easier to get started, with a use case like that. Bring those paper forms or outdated digital files, turn them into a form assembly form that gives you access to, all of our additional features, all of our connectors, all of our, the kind of security in the background with those forms. Never been easier to kind of get started, convert some of those processes to form assembly. Likewise for scaling, right? Like those same customers I was talking about that, maybe you're just relying on that core group of forms and haven't gotten to scaling out to all the kind of sub forms or additional forms that are involved in some of your various, processes and workflows that are sort of happening all the time. Maybe those are often kind of rogue processes, or maybe they're something internal. We just haven't got to it yet, or we haven't tapped our admin to, put in some time to sort of convert this to something digital. File the web form, can knock this stuff out in seconds. We're seeing people go from, again, that kind of core handful of forms to scaling out to kind of hundreds of forms, getting everything sort of in one place, so that teams can manage that again in one place. Data is flowing to and from places sort of in one place. That notion of scaling just went from a huge major project to really something you can knock out fairly quickly, possibly even sort of a day or so, getting dozens more, possibly even hundreds more forms in one place. And then switching, this is one of my favorites. Like I mentioned, I've been at a number of events, been able to talk to customers, and again, raise your hand virtually if this is you, but we've always got some of our major forms in FormAssembly, but there's always that rogue team or that rogue kind of marketing campaign that happened where someone put a one-off kind of form was created and put on this one landing page, or created internally and managed through an old form creation platform or something, and it's just kind of chugged along, or it's been sort of forgotten, and maybe no one even knows where the data is going for that. It's kind of going in the ether. It's certainly not going in one centralized place. No one's getting kind of notified about responses to it, or it's not connected very well with Salesforce, for instance. Never been easier to go grab some of those rogue forms, take a screenshot of them, or grab some sort of file format of it and switch it on to FormAssembly once and for all. Again, kind of happening in seconds. Yeah, so that's a little more insight. Again, it's a very possibly easy feature to sort of understand on the surface. But when you start to think about some of these use cases with, getting started or scaling your operations or switching things off of, kind of rogue one-off instances, again, hopefully some light bulbs are going off for you and your team. But I could wax poetic about it all day. At the end of the day, this is one of the reasons I brought Justin in, was to be able to, give us a demonstration. But Justin, I don't know if anything I said has kind of resonated with you and your discussions with customers, but I know on top of that, you've got a little bit of a show for us to see it in action after that.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Skylar. Let me go ahead and make sure my screen is set up. And as always, I'll do the obligatory, if you don't see my screen coming through, let us know. But we'll be taking a look now inside FormAssembly so that we can run through a few examples specifically aligned with those moments in time that Skylar just spoke to. As a customer, how does this help me start with FormAssembly? How does this help me scale my FormAssembly use? Which should mean, how do I get more value and impact from FormAssembly? Or how does this help me switch other processes onto FormAssembly, again, to get some unique additional impact or value? And the running joke for myself as a salesperson at FormAssembly is, I'm the person that gets paid to sit around all day and go, what if that was a form? Or how could this form be cooler? Because your job as a FormAssembly customer usually revolves around something not related to forms, and forms exist to help get you to that, to help you solve a problem, or to, again, provide some additional impact where elsewhere it wouldn't exist. And so this is a way that we can help you not spend time making forms, but spend time getting closer to that impact, or cutting down the time it takes to get to it entirely. First thing I want to take a look at together is, how do we even set up one of these forms using that file to web form? I'm going to click into my new form here, and you'll see a few different options pop up. And regardless of if it looks a little different on your screen due to FormAssembly plans, this should be available to most plans. We'll make sure to follow up and break down who should and shouldn't see it. And as always, let us know afterwards if you're interested in discussing testing this out. But when I click this, it's going to let me immediately upload a file and present some of those formats that we've already covered. And I just simply grab it from my computer. I'm going to select one here. It shows me the size, and we'll start creating that. And while that kicks off, because it can take a couple minutes, usually no more than a couple minutes, we'll run through those examples here. The first example that I think really speaks to how a lot of folks start with FormAssembly is, how do I take a Google form or PDF of something that maybe exists from another form building platform and turn this into a FormAssembly form? Using that same functionality that we just pulled up, I've already created that out. Earlier today, uploaded this, and this is built out entirely without me touching anything. So I do want to call out immediately that there's not always going to be the expectation that file to web form takes you to the finish line and you're running through the tape. But the goal here is, how do you not spend time, again, building out forms, adding in, maybe questions that are just somewhat consistent across forms, when your time could be better spent connecting this to a system that needs to receive all this data, or setting up automatic notifications or conditional routing based on how the form is filled out, or generating documents based on how somebody selects this so those can be routed for e-signature. But it does capture a lot of those things that you otherwise would need to set up. So we'll see, obviously, different types of fields to where it's not just text inputs, it's recognizing I have various types of questions and all those are going to be included. It's recognizing when I have required questions. And in some cases, as it's an AI-powered tool that's trying to stay intuitive and not on fixed logic, it may do things at times like throw in an asterisk when I don't want that for text because it just read the full question text in the PDF. But I can always make those changes and easily save it, still make changes to the themes, just like I could any other form, but now I'm much further along.
Yeah, I'd love to call that out again, Justin, because this was sort of the eye opener for me when I first got to start beta testing, right? But, you know, just like you said, maybe just like you saw, that was a multi-page PDF. And it's not like the feature was just kind of reading the recognizable text and pulling it over, right? Like without any other interaction, it, you know, automatically sorted those questions for you. And as you can see, without having to do any special formatting, it recognized sometimes when, you know, some of these choices were like radial options for me to choose. It recognized sometimes where this is an open-ended question, so it automatically added that sort of text box. It even kind of picks up a little bit on the context of the question, and like you were showing, can recognize, you know, whether it was indicated on the initial form or not, can recognize what fields might be, you know, required, right? Like for me to register for this event, for instance, like my name and or email address might be required. So it already baked that logic in, again, in addition to just kind of transferring the content over. Such a huge head start, at least, you know, for me on a lot of these kinds of forms, but kind of a game changer, especially if you're not used to, you know, making those kinds of changes, making those kinds of visual tweaks. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm just calling that out again because that part of it, at least initially for me, was really exciting.
I think that's very valid to call out, and I don't want to gloss over the impact of something as little as helping you make sure that required questions are required. I was on a call with a new customer yesterday who was aware that that was available, knew how to set it up, but it was still one of those things of they knew, Justin, can you just show me at least once so that way I know? And this is that set of expert eyes on your first form to say, here's how I would set it up based on knowing FormAssembly when maybe you don't. Maybe this is your first time using it. So it's absolutely going to be an asset for anybody starting with FormAssembly. But also, what happens if I have something a little more complex? And the way these things usually, you know, come into fruition from a customer's point of view is, great, I have FormAssembly set up internally. Now I have some other folks that have said, what if we use this other process or another form in FormAssembly, or that thing that was always a little tougher? Could we do it now? And this is where we can start saying, absolutely, it's not a daunting task. Take something like a 17-page PDF that's a very specifically formatted form that's used by an institution like Charles Schwab. And I'll take this PDF that has questions all the way down to page 8 and 9 and plug that in. And without touching it from the file upload, I'll have a really solid rough outline of a Charles Schwab ready form. And again, I want to call out that there's going to be just regular text here. There's going to be different types of questions, that it also structures these in different ways, that if I want these horizontal or vertical, it'll understand some are required, some aren't. If I were to even click here, we'll see this isn't just a required question. There's already validation rules applied to this with some auto formatting. So there's a ton of layers that are going to come along with these forms, even though it's not at the end result. The goal here is all these little steps that are part of building out a very complex but intuitive form that have the best of both worlds in the reflexiveness and flexibility for your respondents, but also capturing what you need on the back end. Now is really, we take the pain out of that for you. So instead of building out a form, I then just scan through this and go, looks great. What if I then just could jump into a workflow, start grabbing this form and then doing all the critical actions of setting it up with a document generation step or writing that for e-signature, because that's what I truly need this process to do. I don't just simply need a form. A form is one step in getting me to the actual impact.
Yeah, I want to call that again. I don't think I've actually done that in any of my examples, but just pointing that out once more, 10 plus, 15 plus page PDF, had the sections in there ready to go already. I'm just thinking about myself trying to type in all those text fields and options, even if it was a copy paste job, like how long that used to take me in the past. Got that over for you, but you're saying even down in areas where like a date was required, or I think it might have been a date of birth in your example. Not only did it have the formatting there, but it had validation rules in that box. So if someone didn't enter the date in a correct format, it would have caught that already. Like it already sort of automatically put that rule in there. Is that what you're pointing out?
Absolutely. And the thing that I hear most often is I need form assembly because I need that level of complexity on my forms, because I don't need to just capture a date. I need to be very specific about the date. We're not just data. I need to capture a date value. This tool, this functionality inside form assembly, while the web form understands how intuitive your forms need to be, and it will recognize not just validations, but even this, that when I uploaded the PDF, it says, if you selected one of these, then you need to please select the next. So it recognizes, okay, I know form assembly, I know forms, based on what you're telling me, you might want some conditional logic here. And it's already set that up out of box. So that way it has two different options. But, and again, this is nothing that I've set up. If we were to even go back here, we have that initial form that I uploaded already live, ready to touch. It's been less than 10 minutes since I plugged that in. It's not a finished product, but it absolutely is much closer in a lot less time than it would have ever been otherwise.
Form magic for real. Again, talking to existing customers or customers who are getting onboarded, I think about the initial process of one of these, 50 plus step, 17 plus page, kind of processes, and how long they used to not only take to get set up, but get, a little bit of that logic, a little bit of that formatting in, and especially get it set up in a workflow, like starting to take care of some of these, starting to automate some of these real business critical processes of like, notifying someone, sending emails when something gets filled out, stuff like that. And again, I can't help but smile because I just watched you do it, in the few minutes that we've been talking here. So I don't know, to me, big breakthrough, big kind of smile on my face when we get to show this off, but also thinking about some of the teams that I've talked to and, how their faces kind of light up when they see stuff like this. So hopefully the same stuff going on for anyone listening today.
I think even more so than the what and the how is also the who sometimes, of who's using this and who needs to be using this, because there's a lot of times folks will start with form assembly and it's tougher to scale forms or switch from other systems or other form processes into grow form assembly use, because it requires, all right, if I'm going to take, I can only do so much as a single person or single team, and to add other folks into form assembly might require some training, some time, which of course form assembly will enable and support. But again, that's only one part of anyone else's job. So this is a great way for you to grab other folks in the organization, team, or company and say, hey, what if I gave you limited permissions to build forms, and maybe I don't even let you publish them? I have to approve them before they can be published. You don't set up connectors, but you can go in and upload PDFs and old forms all day and start making the changes needed, or whatever other appropriate actions. Because this is where you can also take, something like not just PDFs, but straight up HTML. And I say that specifically because two reasons. One, it wasn't listed earlier just because there's such a wide range of all formats that we can accept in this functionality. But two, if you have a web form, this is the most guaranteed way that it exists, because this is the web part of the form, it being an HTML web page somewhere. And so regardless of how it was built out, whether it was hard coded or any web form provider to ever exist in time, if you have the HTML of a form, you can upload that just like you would a PDF in that file of the web form. And that is one of the best ways for that tool or that functionality, the AI, to then recognize the operations. Because if you notice in this one, just like when I uploaded it earlier, there's some distinct differences already to where we're seeing, just like earlier, conditional logic, but a little bit more structure to the sections, multiple pages being added, so new page elements. We're seeing structures being, or changes being made to the structure on the page or form properties with the page navigation bar, progress bar. There's a lot more going on here because that HTML has a lot more information to it, that upon conversion, it recognizes, okay, I almost know exactly what you're trying to do because you've given me an end result form. The only thing, again, that I need to do here is maybe make it look or feel a little bit different on the theme, and then start plugging it into the next steps in the process where it's really going to drive impact.
Yeah, so this one we're seeing here is your file to web form conversion from that HTML, right?
Exactly. So this is going to be the same process that I used in the two previous examples where those are PDFs. The only difference here is this is going to be an HTML file.
Yeah.
So just like if I wanted to use a CSV, a JPEG, PNG, or any of the other options listed, this is a great way still to get all that previous form info over. And especially in it's just a personal favorite of mine, I think, more than anything. But it's a great way to almost have a ready to go form, barring a few little changes.
See, yeah, that's a new one to me. A lot of my personal use has been, some of those like start or switch, right? We've got, concepts of a form we want to use, or someone made a quick mock-up of something that we might want to use in a campaign, for instance. And, being able to go from that kind of mock-up to take a screenshot and have that turn to a form. That's what's been kind of great for me. But yeah, I noticed, right from this HTML, really taking that blueprint, bringing so much of this information over the various sections in there. One thing that struck me kind of as we're talking about this is, you may see something or have, if you're a relatively new member of your team, and you're looking at, one of these HTML conversions, or you're seeing what it can do from, a screen capture of a really complicated form, you may see the file to web form feature kind of create one of these sections that you've, maybe thought about before, but kind of haven't really, never dove into those particular features or those particular formatting options. And, now that you see it created with file to web form, that's a section that maybe you could create a template from this entire form, or maybe one of these individual sections where, we're always going to use, pre-existing conditions or something on a patient intake form. Well, now I'm seeing this created for me for the first time. I can go save that, to my predefined templates right now. My team or myself, I'm going to have access to that, from now on. Is that right?
Incredible call out. I really appreciate you mentioning that, because that's a huge driver of impact for not just folks that are starting out, but also folks that are scaling different use cases and adding in new content. Because at the end of the day, you don't just have forms, you also have all the questions that make up a form. And there's a lot of times that certain forms ask the same questions, even though they're different forms, or you may have, a very intense set of questions built out, especially in the case of maybe, something like this, to where, say I had 500 options here and I typed it once, why would I ever want to type that again? Well, guess what? I didn't type it just now. File the web form, got that typed out for me, but I can still go ahead and add that to predefined content. So I don't ever have to convert from a file again. I can just make it a one-click drop into any form moving forward.
Exactly. Yep. So cool. Because again, watching some of your examples, Justin, I can kind of catch quick glimpses of sections like, oh yeah, that's right. I haven't created a section like that, or done a logic setup like that in a while. And I'm thinking, whoa, file to web form just kind of did it for you in a couple of these examples. Really easy for me to see something I like and kind of save it for later.
Absolutely. There's always a lot to explore in FormAssembly, because I hear from customers often, there's always something that I know is powerful, but I just haven't tried yet because the use case hasn't brought me to it. Or again, because Justin, you're the guy that gets paid to get excited about all the interesting things about FormAssembly, whereas I'm using forms for a use case, but now it's cutting down that time and that need to pretend to be Justin and take on every level of expertise, but find the expertise that you need in that moment wield it as specifically and as intuitively as needed in that moment to just get in, get out, and have an effective form driving to the next step in your process.
Yep, totally. Well, that was, I think, kind of three demonstrations there. You can kind of see the range, or, read between the lines of our kind of start, switch, and scale, right? Again, if you've got a relatively simple kind of PDF or a screenshot, awesome place to kind of start playing around with this feature. Turn something really in seconds on some of those real simple screenshots and really brief kind of PDFs. You can see results kind of in seconds there. But whether you're kind of switching or scaling, you saw a few more complicated setups, be it really long multi-page kind of PDFs, sort of dependent sort of sections. And you saw the file to web form functionality, again, not only kind of bringing that over, but and a lot of times taking more than an educated guess on, formatting rules, even a little bit of light conditional logic. I think I saw, Justin, is that right? Yep.
Absolutely. The conditional validation rules and a lot of those similar like core pieces of what makes a form, provide the data you need are going to be captured.
Yeah. Not all of us are taking quick screenshots or, converting kind of loan applications, from Schwab or something. But, again, here to kind of inspire and maybe motivate. But if you aren't already, what are some other example use cases that you may be able to kind of go off right after this webinar and sort of try yourself? But again, especially when it comes, under that kind of start category, I think about some of those, paper-only forms that, have been paper only probably for way too long. We talk to nonprofits, and they're still doing a lot of their volunteer work, sort of manually, just someone with a clipboard and a stack of paper forms, and they're trying to, get those volunteers. No one's had the time, or maybe no one's, sort of had the technical know-how to convert stuff like that to digital. So it's a great time to, bring that into FormAssembly, get it converted once and for all. You saw that complicated Schwab form. Like, again, what kind of complicated sort of multi-step forms that you have that you've maybe been putting off, or things that are outside of your core business critical forms that you sort of wish you've been able to invite to the party or had the time to do it. That sort of scaling, getting those complicated things like loan application processes into FormAssembly. Not only the forms themselves, but you saw once it came over, pretty easy to go grab that file, form file, and incorporate it into your FormAssembly workflows sort of from there, right? So it really got you 50, 75, sometimes 90% of the way there of that kind of working form, also plugged into workflows and additional processes from there. Huge shortcut. And then again, switching, you heard me mention it earlier, but almost every team I've talked to has this problem where someone somewhere is kind of going rogue sometimes, or you just need something quick, and they create sort of a one-off marketing campaign, one-off like internal data collection process at your company. Maybe it's in a spreadsheet. Finally, being able to sort of switch those into FormAssembly, get all the the additional features, the automations that come with bringing it into FormAssembly, as opposed to that rogue form that's just storing data off in the ether somewhere. Some people can't see it. Maybe it's not going to Salesforce and it should be. Maybe it's involved in an internal process that it requires approval, and that could be automated instead of someone having to remember to go check up on that sort of internal form. Switch that stuff over, using this feature. I do want to mention, I don't know if we said it before, but another reason we're really excited about this feature is if you're on an Essentials, FormAssembly Essentials or above platform. So, even kind of the, one of the lowest options that we've been offering, you'll see this feature in there now. And on top of that, we're putting no caps on its usage, right? So really opening it up to, almost everybody on the platform, putting no sort of usage restrictions on it. So if you can think it, we really encourage you to go mess with it, because that's how you're going to learn more about it. That's how you're going to see, is this getting us halfway there, almost all the way there, kind of in one shot. This feature can't think for us, but as you saw, in some of the examples Justin pulled out, it can take more than an educated guess on what should be, the content on there, the way it's sort of laid out, some of those formatting options, some of that conditional logic, really taking again more than an educated guess on a lot of that. So if you've got something in mind, you saw the wide range of file formats that it supports. I really, encourage you, just give it a shot, see what it spits out, over the course of 30 seconds to a few minutes. I give that time range because it does, the more complicated the logic is in there, the longer something is, the longer it'll take to think about it. I'll admit that. But for that reason, we did put an arbitrary limit, somewhat arbitrary limit of 100 pages. So if you've got some kind of otherworldly, PDF or process going on, you will hit that kind of cap limit if it's over 100 pages. But otherwise, we've tried to stress test this thing for quite a few use cases, quite a few large and complicated use cases. So yeah, give it a shot. Try some of these sort of start, scale, or switch stories for yourself. We'd love to know, what you see, what you come up with. And if you run into something, we'd love to hear that too. You might have seen that little beta tag on the feature in there for now. It's because, machine learning is very much a part of this. So it's learning, we're learning. We've been making improvements to this kind of throughout the summer, but we're excited to give it a little bit of a spotlight today. Anything else there, Justin, in terms of again, when you talk to people about some of these, or, people who kind of get their hands on it at first, or things to look out for?
No, I mean, I think you especially nailed that, because this is something that's using machine learning and AI powered, that you could give it the same PDF 100 times and there might be some slight variations every time, because it is seeking to iterate to some degree. So I would say acknowledge that going into it. And again, always don't treat this as going to be the output that you need without any changes, but look at it as the overall time savings. And there's a lot of little things you can do to prepare for minimizing those time savings. For instance, I know that I didn't have any work done to change the theme on my form, but you can do things like set a default theme through your admin settings. So that way, every time I have a new form generated, it already has the theme that I want. I don't have to make changes. Or as a user, I don't even have to worry about knowing that there's changes to be made.
Exactly. Well, with that said, we've covered it sort of, in depth, given hopefully some inspiring examples, set you up for where to go to sort of try it out. Did leave a little bit of time here for some of the Q&A that's popped in. I'm going to try to, kind of start from the beginning here. I did see one call out. Joshua was telling us this has been a huge value add time saver for offices, switching from paper to digitizing. Absolutely. This is one of my favorite things. Again, we talk to these teams where so much business critical work is still done on paper only, and they just maybe didn't have the resources, maybe didn't have the staff or kind of technical know-how to digitize some of this. Again, if that's you, you've got that paper form, really just go grab a picture of it, get a scan of it, try this out, see what you get. It's never been easier to go, especially paper to digital. I've seen some real, form magic with that use case for sure. Another person sort of asking, we mentioned this, but I'd love to reinforce it. Is this available to all users? So yeah, FormAssembly, we've been around almost 20 years now, and there's been a number of, different kinds of accounts and stuff. But if you're on a very, very old, kind of legacy plan from multiple instances of FormAssembly ago, you might not see this in there. Like I said, it's if you've been on kind of an essentials and above plan on FormAssembly to date, that's where you'll see this. Again, easy way to go check is go to create that new form, and within your new form creation options, hopefully you'll see that file to web form feature there. But that's where you see it, essentials and above. And again, we've put no add-on charge for this. We've put no cap on the number of times you can use it. Please, absolutely encouraging you to just, get your hands on it and hopefully make your lives a little simpler with it for sure. We got one question about Gov customers, which I'm really glad you brought this up. If you're on a Gov instance with us, you're obviously on a very heightened sort of security setup. So some of the updates to our features lag behind a bit for Gov instances. That's for security purposes. And likewise, some of our account setups deliberately sort of features are held back. Again, for security instances, or maybe you've got kind of special requests with us that our team, sort of helps accommodate with your instance. We do recognize that, this is a sort of first sort of toe in the water with us, for AI, machine learning, and there are some special circumstances there when it comes to very, very high security Gov setup. So I can't answer that question across every single account. What I can encourage you to do is reach out to your account manager if you're on a Gov account and interested in this feature. We can either opt in or opt out for it with you. We definitely want to be sensitive to any sort of higher security sort of settings when thinking about this, or when things are being created for us sort of in there. So again, if you're on Gov, talk to your account manager if you're curious about this, and or if you're not seeing it. There's a good chance we can make special accommodations for those accounts if we haven't already. Sabrina was asking us, Justin, maybe you can help me on this one some more, but will this handle questions with conditional responses? And I think, well, I'd be curious to hear what you've seen or your response to that, Justin, first.
First, yes, this absolutely will address any conditional logic that your form should have, or suggest that it should have based on how it's structured. And the reason I even answer it like that, a yes and some additional context, is because we saw two cases in the examples where in one scenario, the last one, it had HTML, and in that HTML, the actual code of what made up that form had the acknowledgement saying like these sections are conditional based on this, in the same way a web page would operate. And therefore FormAssembly said, okay, I will do the exact same thing that the HTML here is telling me to do. But in the other example, we had a PDF, and that PDF obviously doesn't have any code to it. It's just, or not like the HTML code, it's just a PDF. And so what the file web form recognized in that moment was, you have some text in this PDF that says, if you answer yes to this, please answer this. So in both scenarios, file the web form said either, based on the conditional logic I can see is structured in your form, I'll replicate it, or based on the conditional logic it looks like you're expecting to utilize in your form because of how this PDF is laid out. So yes, and even if you're not sure if it should have conditional logic, or in some cases where maybe it didn't, but it would be potentially strengthened by it, don't be surprised if you see that come through on your form already without having to set anything up.
Yep, exactly. Again, the feature can't think for you. So if you had a certain intention with some of your conditional logic, you might not be on the same wavelength there, I'd say. But the best thing, my advice to anyone sort of with that open question about conditionals is try it, try it and kind of see what you get. You saw Justin get some of his accomplished just in a few seconds, and it was exactly the kind of conditional logic we wanted for that section. But we understand the use cases are kind of infinite and pretty unique. So I totally suggest try it, kind of like what Justin's saying, see what you get. Sometimes you only need an extra 5-10% and you're there. Sometimes there's a few more clicks to go, but it's pretty awesome that it at least got those first 17 pages for me, or 9 out of 10 of my conditional sections. It feels pretty good when you see that go down. Let's see, I know we're kind of running out here. A few questions about the role of connectors, and will FormAssembly connectors kind of already be sort of automatically in there when it goes in? Justin, I don't think that's the case. I think obviously it can build the net new sort of form for you when it comes over, but it doesn't necessarily have access to that logic to be able to go authorize and put a connector in there for you. Is that right?
You're right. And so I did see there were some questions about the connectors. And even in one scenario where, say I have a form that's already built out and I want to utilize those connectors that I've set up, I can still clone that form and those connectors are cloned. I won't be able to use file to web form to create any new connectors though. One thing that is possible though, that we mentioned earlier, Skylar called out that, what if I want to make this predefined content? Perfect. I make this predefined content, go to the form that has the connectors, and instead of trying to bring the connectors to this form, I bring this form's content to where the connectors are. I do want to recognize that that's also still not generating the connectors new. It's just cutting down the time to combine those steps. Obviously, if there was a perfect world where you could say not just, hey, AI, recognize this form and turn it into a form for me, but also, I want to build out a connector that does this, this, and this. Can you also apply that to the form? That would be more ideal. And that may be something to expect coming later down the line.
Yeah, excellent tease. I love that we got to that question kind of towards the end. We are, coming up against it. But if you haven't already seen it, I want to point out the resource section where you see a few links in there. You heard us talking about, hey, maybe it can't, automatically sort of have connections, or you saw Justin saying, yeah, maybe a next step for me after file to web form would be to, go in that themes or templates, and apply a couple clicks to get the look and feel I want, or get a logo on there or something. But what if some of that stuff was starting to happen automatically in FormAssembly? One of the links in our resource section is a webinar coming up that we're doing with Salesforce about the future of forms. You may have seen an announcement on FormAssembly in the last week or so, or if you follow us in the news, that's great. Thank you so much. But you probably saw it there too. Just this past week at Dreamforce in San Francisco, we unveiled kind of a new iteration. We're calling it FormAssembly Atlas. If you want to search that up and see the announcement, but like if this feature was us kind of dipping a toe, in AI and AI capabilities, FormAssembly Atlas and some of the additional functionality coming with that for new and existing customers is really bringing some additional kind of form magic to things. So you're going to see even more of that if you sign up for that webinar happening there with Salesforce. Hit that registration link if you're interested, especially if you use a Salesforce connection, because we're doing that with Salesforce. A lot of Salesforce connection knowledge in that webinar as well. We're going to be going over some of the things we learned, some of our takeaways from Dreamforce. It's one of the biggest Salesforce events, if not the biggest Salesforce event of the year. We just got back from it, but also showing you some of this future of forms, right? We've put a little teaser on the screen on the picture here, but this AI assistant where, again, with little to no code, I uploaded a file and got a form. What if I could just simply describe what I needed, right? Like you see in the picture here. What if I could simply tell, an assistant that I needed a registration form, it's for a fundraising event, and it, needs to be connected to Salesforce. And from that simple of a description, get a form connected that's already utilizing my authorized sort of Salesforce connection. What if I could just describe that event registration form that needs to require a name but can handle accepting payments? What if I could say that in a sentence or two and have that sort of appear? What if I could say, put it in branding that matches my website, and those extra steps, for uploading a logo or kind of changing colors and stuff were automatically done for you. So if that sounds exciting, we're going to be talking about this a lot more, FormAssembly Atlas, but we're also going to be unveiling it a bit more in this webinar, Future of Forms. So sign up for that if it sounds interesting. We've also got some links for you. Great jumping off point. You'll see the knowledge article for file to web form. Great place to start. Reinforce some of the information we've talked about today. But while you're there in our help center, if that's inspired any other questions, or you're thinking about new conditional logic or any of the features or things you saw on screen today, that knowledge center, you can type in almost any search related to almost any feature and land on the article you need and see kind of a click-by-click walkthrough, sometimes even some video walkthroughs of how to do that. So if you're not using the Help Center already, we've got an amazing team behind the scenes that's always keeping the information about all of our features and some of these use cases really fresh for you in there. So check that out as well. Again, wanted to call that out. Really exciting things happening with both file to web form, but FormAssembly Atlas and this kind of future of forms that we're looking at here. So as you can tell, by my endless smile. I've been really excited about this feature since it came out this summer, but I really think we're kind of just getting started with, you know, new and exciting stuff for teams coming out with FormAssembly. So again, check it out. Thank you so much for coming to this, you know, this training webinar, any of our webinars. Keep the questions coming. We love talking to you all about this, or even hearing about some of the use cases that you've had, because it all helps us, it helps our knowledge center, it helps our machine learning. we're all learning here. Justin, I don't know if you have any sort of wrap up comments or you know, sort of final thoughts related to that.
Definitely want to give one more thank you to everybody that set aside some time to come join us today, to come, you know, strengthen their FormAssembly expertise. And again, it's never lost on me that FormAssembly has a lot of customers that are, you know, that are very, very, I appreciate the partnership and a lot of our customers and a lot of our partners as well. And that is, the significance isn't lost on me. And I really, really see the potential for this to help springboard other folks to that same experience that maybe exist on teams or companies that have used FormAssembly historically, but they just haven't had a chance, or the use cases existed, but something's been in the way. And again, thank you for all the, you know, all the appreciation.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Justin, I'll see you in FormAssembly, and I hope I can say the same for everyone else. And maybe I'll see you in one of these coming up soon. We're always trying to throw, you know, at least a few of these a month. So thanks again, everybody. We'll see you soon. Take care.